So yes, I'm a Grafana web developer, and I've been working on Grafana full time about a year since I joined RenTank. And as Brian said, that's about the same time Prometheus was added to Grafana. And for those of you who don't know Grafana, it's a dashboarding tool that supports multiple data sources, not just Prometheus. So you support 6 different data sources in the core model, and one of them is Prometheus, as I said. And in Grafana, we have a small call home feature that every day sends some data about your Grafana installation back to us. And it's no sensitive data, you can check it, it's pure version numbers and so on. And we also send the data source usage, so we calculate how many Grafana installations has at least one Prometheus data source. And when I checked that yesterday, there's about 2,800 Grafana installation that has Prometheus, which I think is kind of great. The usage increase has been steady since a year ago, so I think this is almost worth celebrating. Grafana itself, it's a little bit bigger. We have about almost 2 million dashboards, almost getting close to 2 million dashboards to you every day. So this is about how Grafana, basically how Grafana looks. Regarding last dashboard, you can view it on playgrafana.org. It's public information. If you want to see more stats about Grafana, you can get version numbers and so on. So this is kind of how Grafana looks. And my idea now is to jump into Grafana and show you some features that I think you should be aware of and don't miss, and also introduce it a bit. So all these dashboards that I'm going to show now are available on playgrafana.org as well, and they are tagged with PromCon. So when you get a new dashboard, you can add a new panel by clicking the green one, or you can go to click the title and go edit mode. So this is how you write your Prometheus queries. I'm not going to show you so many Prometheus queries because the Prometheus team would probably slap me in the face. But it allows you to do some filtering, like job equals node, stuff like that. And you can also format the label, because this is the name that Prometheus returns, and it's correct but kind of ugly. So I suggest you give it a better name by using the legit formatter, like that. Then you will select the label, job, and all your graphs looks much better. And you can also quick search on time series to the right, if you want to search to get the correct spelling and so on. And if you click it, it will go into the query. This is not super slick, but hopefully we will improve it in the future. So let's go to the next thing. Yesterday, Christian asked for consoles in Grafana, and you can get consoles in Grafana using the table panel. You just have to configure the transformation of the time series to aggregations. Then you will not have the time series. So then you get a console-like feature. And you can also be smart about the labels. So in this case, I'm searching for alerts, firing. Then you can use the labeling part to create a link and select alert name. That way all these are clickable. Small nifty features that might be useful. Another thing that might be funny on dashboard is showing just one label name, like commit version or whatever server you're targeting or something. And this feature is kind of new in the single stat panel, that you can select the serial name instead of a value. Because often you want to see which database you're hitting or a version or something like that. So next. Annotations is something that is really useful in graphs so when you want to highlight something specific. And I'm not sure when we added support for annotations in Prometheus, but if you want to configure them and set them up, you go up to settings and then annotations. You will be able to set them up. So I'll show you this example, which is just a Prometheus query. And whenever it returns, we draw a line. And then you can pick color and so on that you want. Something that's very nice is that you can query the alerts time series. So whenever it's firing, it draws a line. And you can also select certain values from the results from the alert. So in this case, we want to set the title to alert name, and we want to fetch the tags job and alert. And we want the text, again, to be a link to something based on the time series. What you get is an actionable annotation that gives you quite a lot of information. So hopefully you can link back to Prometheus or something like that. Templating is one of the more advanced and powerful features in Grafana. I'm going to show you most of them that we support in for Prometheus. And the first one, and that I hope everyone should be aware of using Prometheus, is the data source template variable. So you can configure a dashboard to use a template variable instead of a specific data source. And template variables could be seen as a variable that you can dynamically change by these dropdowns. So then you could change to the other Prometheus server that's not running, and go back to Brian's demo site. The most simple version of a template variable is a custom value. So whenever I change these, the query changes. So if you want to configure the templating, you go up to the settings as usual, and then we go to custom values. And as you see here, we just choose the type custom, and we provide the values. And these are the values that will be choosable in this dropdown, comma separated. And if you add one, push gateway, again, you will see. You can also use create template variables depending on queries that you send to Prometheus. So these template variables, jobs, queries Prometheus for label values that's used for the label, that can be used for the label job, which then returns this. And we can also include the options multi-value, which means you can select two values at the same time. And you can also include the all option, which means all. So if we go to the jobs templating, we can select all or just one. And you have to click outside for this update. And whenever you do that, you want to make sure to have this little tilde character in your query, because otherwise queries like this will not work, since Prometheus requires a perfect match. And this is a very common issue and question on mailing lists. So whenever you use multi-select, you have to use the tilde character. Another more Another templating function that you can use is the metrics query, where you send a query to Prometheus asking for time series matching this name. So in this case, we'll query Prometheus for this kind of time series. We get back a bunch. And this enables us to have queries like this. So disk series will be replaced with the time series you select up in the template variable, and then jobs will be replaced with the jobs selector. It's hard to say how useful this is, but I bet you can find reasons to use something like this. So let's see if I covered all the cases. You can, yeah, the last case I couldn't make up a real example of, but you could also create template variables containing results from Prometheus queries. So in this case, we will query for time series matching this query, and we will get this result. And we can use some regex matching to get whatever you want for this specific templating. I couldn't figure something up with the demo data that's provided by Brian, but I bet you guys can find some good use for it. Another kind of powerful feature is the panel repeater. So when you have a template like this, you can set the panel to repeat for the amount of template variables selected. So in this case, it will repeat for every template variable that you select if you configure repeat panel in general. So this way you can create very dynamic dashboards, and you can also use Unicode shares in your single stats. So in this case, it's matching, it's asking if it's 1 or 0. Two other features that I think everyone should be using is the snapshot. If you go to dashboard and share, you will be able to either save it locally or in our Grafana hosted version. And what it does, it is saves all the data that you're currently viewing into a JSON blob, and then renders that whenever someone opens the snapshot. So you don't need access to the data source or anything like that. You can just view it on your mobile phone or whatever. And this is kind of powerful. I shouldn't lie them. Oh, anyway. You can view it on your mobile phone or something like that when you don't have access to the Grafana or Prometheus server. And you can also create links to the dashboards, and this is very useful when you have a lot of template variables. I've seen a lot of dashboards that has 4 or 5 different template variables, and when you see something, you want to make sure that the person you send a link to get all the template variables at the same state as you do. So if you click create link, you get a link including a preset template variable. So I had a data source template which were hidden, which caused problems when I shared it. Yeah, sorry about that. That's all I have to share within Grafana. I hope you found some of these features useful. The next thing I want to talk about is that we're currently working on is alerting for Grafana. And I know you guys already has this kind of pinned down by yourself. And last night I had a conversation with Julius and Fabian and some of the other folks from Prometheus. And we kind of started from two different angles. I bet you started on a whiteboard with a perfect data model. We started by mocking fields in Grafana and trying to find a way where we can provide alerting as quick as possible. And without any knowledge about tags or labels, because that's these kind of attributes to time series is not available generally in Grafana. Grafana only knows time series and names. So we have other limitations, but we hope to provide another feature, another experience that might be suitable for some people. And the idea for us is to have queries that are reduced to one value, either by sum, max, min, and then compared to one number. And whenever the result of a time series is above or below or within range, outside range, we will alert. So that's our philosophy so far, and it's been successful for some data sources. We only support Graphite right now, but Prometheus will be added next week. But this is UI first rather than config first. And I think it's important to have everyone in your team being able to create alerts. So I think this might be a good idea. And you can also test the rules within Grafana. So whenever you press the button, you will do a test run, and you get a result for every time series. Is this firing? Is this not firing? Etc. This is much work in progress. We'll see how it ends in a few months. Grafana.net is also something I want to talk about. In Grafana 3.0, we added a plugin system, which allows you to install plugins and dashboards that are hosted on our site. And plugins can be of three different kinds. It's data sources, panels, and apps. And apps is a combination of panels and data sources, and you can also have custom pages if you want to promote something special or integrate with products that we don't really know or deal with. And it looks something like this. And if you want to install these plugins, you can just use the CLI tool that's bundled with Grafana. So plugin, install Grafana PyChart if you want to use PyChart. I strongly suggest you don't use PyChart, but some people really want to. And some plugins that I think are nice to be aware of is the world map. So now here you can map time series to a map, and depending on how many matches you have for a country or geolocation, it will the ball will increase to be smaller or change color. Now geolocation might not be a good idea for Prometheus and labels, but using country code should be kind of easy. Another plugin that I like, because I wrote it, is the Simple JSON plugin. It's basically a very tiny protocol for sending post requests to whatever server, where they can then respond with time series. And this makes it possible to integrate any system into Grafana, to have any system draw lines, even if they're not meant to. And there's a lot of systems that you want to extract data from, and this makes it very easy without us having to integrate with every SQL server, etc., etc. And this can also be used for annotations and so on. And I've been asked many times during this conference about histograms and heat maps, and we don't really support that yet. But there's one issue that you might want to keep track on, where we are starting to add possibilities to add different values to the e-axle in the graph panel. I wouldn't say it's histograms or something like that yet, but Mtanda, who is working a lot on the Prometheus project, Grafana Prometheus part, has two plugins that support this. I haven't tried them out myself, but he's using them for Prometheus histograms and heat maps. So please check them out. And if they don't work perfectly, please help in. And the last thing I want to talk about is dashboard sharing, which was in 3.1. So whenever you have a dashboard that you like, you can extract it and upload it to grafana.net, which makes it super easy for other people to get started with a new data source or a new exporter, a new game, a new system, or anything like that. Because it's sometimes the hard part is not always just to extract metrics and put them in a graph. The hard part is knowing what to watch and what to compare and what to see. So if you spend a lot of time setting up the good dashboards, please share them so others can get started earlier. And if you do exporter, it's a very good idea to do a dashboard, I think. And when you import them into Grafana, you can just specify the URL to the grafana.net site, and then you choose a Prometheus data source or other configuration that's needed for this dashboard, and you're up and running. You can get dashboards within seconds. It's super sleek. Because setting up dashboards is not always that fun. And it's aligns with our one of our earlier posters and the culture that we want to create within the Grafana team is democratize metrics. We want to spread metrics and make them free and available for everyone. And sharing dashboard is one way of making that easier. So that's it for me. Thank you for listening.
Any questions?
First of all, we use Grafana heavily and we like it, so thank you for that. I have a question related to, of course, we use it heavily with Prometheus. Since I can't remember which version, Prometheus added time filtering to the series endpoint. I was wondering if templating in Grafana supports it now with Prometheus data source. Or you're not aware of it?
No, I'm not aware of that, sorry.
Okay.
I haven't been using Prometheus data source that much, to be honest. It's kind of new to me. I'm sorry.
You can use a templating engine on the labels. Which templating engine is working there in the background?
Oh, it's not Prometheus templating engine. I'm not sure if I get your question. But the templating engine is within Grafana. It interpolates the queries.
No, I meant the templating engine for the label names.
Not sure I get that question.
So the legend field, what is the templating system used there?
Aha, okay. I'm not aware of that either, sorry.
I think at that point it's just interpolation, so there's no templating at all. It just replaces the labels.
Yeah, that might be true. You can't use template values in legends that I'm aware of.
So just a question there, we'll be able to add links. Does that mean that there's XSS vulnerabilities?
Yeah, some. We do. Angular has a sanitizer that we are using before we put it out. But yeah, that's a good question.
And XSRF?
Thanks so much. In the beginning, you mentioned there's 2,800 installations with Prometheus. Can you share any stats how that compares to other data sources, or is that confidential?
I don't want to share that on record.
Okay.
Yeah, I can show you afterwards. But we don't want to start this discussion about popularity between data sources.
Sure, yeah.
Any other questions?
We use Grafana a lot, and it's fantastic, so thanks a lot for that. One issue I have is that when I try to use the data source plugins, if I then try to export and share the template or the dashboard with someone else when they import it, they have to choose specific, like the UI requires them to specify which data source they want to use, and then subsequently, basically the data source template doesn't work anymore because it's been kind of hard-coded by the import process. I was wondering if there was any solution for that.
No, that's a technical bug that, or with a drawback that we have to live with currently. There's no solution for
I've
that.
hit that myself just with capitalization of data sources, like moving stuff from one Grafana to another. And one is Prometheus with a capital P and one's Prometheus with a lowercase p, and yeah, that doesn't work. Any other questions? Right then, thank you very much.